Hey everybody, Richard Pierce here again, talking more about writing assessment items. So some of the things I'd like to address in this presentation, we've talked previously about what is a good question. We know that questions have good form. But beyond that, we'd like to consider other factors now, such as performance. So good questions, they have good form, and they have good performance. The objectives of this presentation, I'd like you to be able to define what are some of the performance properties. How do we evaluate assessment items? Describe the acceptable ranges for different quantitative aspects of assessment items, including p-value, discrimination, and distractor performance, and also make inferences about a question giving certain performance metrics. So kind of the big three for performance, assessing the quality of an assessment item would be the p-value, the distractor performance, and item discrimination. P-value is very simply put the percentage correct. P-value of 1.0 would indicate 100% correct. Everybody got it right. There is no discrimination in that case. 0.5 would be 50% 50% correct. So consider that for a minute. What is going to be your question mix? How many hard questions? How many easy questions? Is there a way to reduce this to a formula? And of course there is, but doesn't mean everybody does it. So the ideal p-value mean on a 100-item exam with 4 options each would be 0.63. So that's halfway between the percentage of just pure guess. If there's 4 options, 100 questions, you have a 25% chance of just guessing and getting the correct answer. So the idealized p-value mean would be halfway between that floor of guessing, which is 25%, and 100. It comes out to like 0.63. Good news and bad news here. Good news is, okay, there is such thing as an idealized p-value mean. Well, the bad news is, well, it's not really bad news, but most people don't approach their assessment items like this. They take a little more of a macro view of things, if you will. They'll just say, okay, I know that there are different levels of questions in terms of Bloom's taxonomy. Some questions are just recall questions, the baseline formula, identify questions. Some are application questions, and some are beyond application, like analysis, synthesis. So how many, baseline recall questions versus application questions? Most people will go ahead and develop a test matrix in their head where they'll say, okay, look, I'll get them started with one or two easy questions, then I'll throw in 2 or 3 more difficult questions. So distractors. There's 3 types of distractors, and distractors are one of the hardest things about writing assessment items. There's functional distractors. Now, these are the kind you want. More non-achievers choose them than achievers. That's discrimination. Non-functional distractors would say they're equally chosen or rarely chosen at all. They don't discriminate between high and low achievers on the test. Or worst case scenario, nobody chooses them at all. And dysfunctional distractors would be like a negative discrimination situation where your higher achievers on the test end up picking this distractor. So what do you do with underperforming distractors? You look at your test questions and you have one item that nobody chose. Well, clearly you want to rewrite them. That's the only way to fix them. So what is discrimination? I've mentioned it a couple times. Well, actually, what it does is it takes your top 27% on the test and your bottom 27% and compares how they do on every item. So it discriminates between basically the top third and the bottom third on every given question. So discrimination is desirable. Okay? You want to be able to separate students in terms of, high, medium, and low achievers. So if there's 0 to 24%, usually unacceptable, and you could improve on that. 0 discrimination means everybody got it right. You don't want many of those questions. course, it depends on the context too. If it's a flight simulator and you have to fly the plane, for example, you want zero discrimination. You want the pilot to be able to fly that plane and land it every time. But that's usually not what we're looking for in multiple choice questions in the basic sciences. So a good item would be between 25 and 39% discrimination, and an excellent item would be above 39%. So how do you promote discrimination in questions? Well, the primary vehicle is by the vignette. We've talked about vignettes being a preferred method of showing, of developing your question stems. So the short vignette here, this shows the high-low discrimination. The high group, 98% got this right. The low group, 82% got it right. Well, the longer the vignette, the more discrimination, as we'll see. Here's a longer vignette, and you can see the high group, they're still sitting at the 98% correct. Their p-value would be 0.98. However, that low group continues to struggle. There's more going on in this question. There's more analysis. There's more synthesis. There's more application. There's more things to consider. And that is the mother of discrimination. So vignette summary, vignette length increases item discrimination. Discrimination is desirable, and you want to avoid unnecessary red herring information. You don't want to just fluff up your vignettes, for the sake of confusing people. Clinical relevance is key to your question stems. So what does this look like? This is an example of an item and analysis report from an exam, and it shows you along the x-axis the p-values, and along the y-axis the item correlation discrimination. Alright, so this box here, not many people got these right, and they were low in discrimination. So I'm going to question the efficacy of these assessment items. 18 to 22% got these correct, yet it didn't really discriminate between high and low people. They're under 0.2. I'm saying whoever got these right guessed on them. These questions, on the other hand, these are hard questions, but very discriminating. You can see they range between 30% to 45% got these right. P-values ranging from 0.3 to 0.45. Yet, high in discrimination, 0.35 and up. You get over here, these are 0.9 and above. These are too easy. Too easy and not discriminating at all down here. Marching up the discrimination chain here, but still too easy. I asked the instructor what was the story with these two questions, and the instructor replied that these were two of the items, like the last two items that they covered before the test. So it looked like a content coverage kind of thing. They were trying to cover too much content, and either they just didn't explain it correctly, and or the students for sure just didn't get it. Alright, here's another exam we can look at. Unlike the previous example, here's the baseline of zero discrimination. Alright, so here we have questions with negative discrimination, and this should never, ever, ever happen. Even though almost 90% got these right, wild guess, lower achievers getting them right more often than higher achievers. So these four questions, I would say, you need to take out of this test immediately. And you can see a nice mix of difficult, high discriminating questions in here. So kind of in summary, what is a good question? Well, they have good form, you know that. But they also perform well. And we know they perform well because we can look at their p-value and their discrimination properties. And that is it. If you have any questions, email me. Nice talking to you. Take care.